Do you ever think how nice it might be to have another child?
Isn't that funny? I was just thinking how nice it would be to get rid of the two we got.
Mary Tyler Moore and Ted Danson are what looks like a happily married couple, but they have a lot of heartbreak and a few big surprises ahead of them. And Just Between Friends, one of the new movies we'll be reviewing this week. And I'm Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. In addition to Just Between Friends, we'll also take a look at the Michael Keaton comedy called Gung Ho. Also Maggie Smith in a wonderful romantic film, I think, called A Room with a View. First, though, Roger takes a look at an action picture called Highlander, and I'm going to be
And now, you've already told us what you thought about A Room with a View, so I think I can guess what you think of Highlander. I'm going to give my opinion, which is this is sort of like a garage sale at the house of a berserk screenwriter.
You got it.
This movie has a little bit of everything. Immortality, sword fights, ancient legends, muscular heroes, exploding automobiles, wise old men, beautiful women, bloody beheadings, and lightning crackling through the sky. It has an especially lot of beheadings and lightning. In fact, occasionally people's fingertips just tingle with all of the excess electrical energy in the story. The story involves a race of immortals, men who can be killed in only one way, by having their heads chopped off with a sword. And in this scene, Christopher Lambert plays one of the immortals in a duel to the death in a modern-day parking garage. One of the oldest and wisest immortals is played by Sean Connery. He seems to be the man who knows all of the secrets of this heroic race and is prepared to battle its most evil members.
Get out! Target! Ramirez. The Highlander. Where is he?
One of the problems with being an immortal is that you keep outliving every woman you fall in love with. That doesn't stop Lambert from being attracted to Roxanne Hart.
You want to dine in the hall, or shall we step inside?
Come in. May I take your coat?
No, thanks.
What?
I'll hold on to it.
Oh, fine.
Where are you going?
I forgot my earrings.
Oh.
Make yourself a drink. There are glasses in the bar. You know what you're doing?
I like your place, Brenda.
I've only been here 3 months. I'm still picking it up.
Interesting view.
What did you say?
I said interesting view.
I guess that's supposed to be a Scottish accent. I should have explained that the story goes back and forth between ancient Scotland and the modern day. You know, the ancient stuff reminded me of the Vikings. Remember with Kirk Douglas going
The Vikings was better, and it was a bad film.
Kirk Douglas goes past on the horse, and Ernest Borgnine says, "What a man! Odin could have sired him, but I did." That's the kind of dialogue they have in here. No accent is going to save this dialogue. I thought Highlander was a completely, and thank you for laughing at that story, completely silly and very boring movie. I kept hoping for something interesting to come along and interrupt those endless sword fights. Back and forth. These guys must have had pecs like this by the time they were finished. And finally I realized what movie Highlander reminded me of. That's entertainment. That's right, that's entertainment, and that's dancing, and all those other movies that are collections of all the great high points from dozens of movies, one high point right after another with nothing in between. Now, take away the high points, too, and you have Highlander. You could call it That's Sword Fighting.
Yeah, well, that's not bad. That's funnier than your impression of Ernest Borgnine.
Thank you very much.
This one, first of all, I'm going to tell you something. I saw this in one of the best movie theaters in the United States. I happened to be in Los Angeles, and I saw this in the Avco Cinema on Wilshire Boulevard near Westwood. The sound was spectacular, and when this movie started with a great opening scene, I thought, I'm in for a fabulous time. I saw this movie under the greatest conditions that I've seen a movie in a long time. It is one of the lousiest films I've ever seen in my life. It made no sense whatsoever as it flipped between the two stories. Sean Connery is billed forth here. He has a bit part. If you're a Sean Connery fan, don't get suckered in and go to see it. His whole part, he looks like he just stepped off a Beefeater gin bottle. He's laughable. The whole movie is
laughable. The whole movie is completely ridiculous, and oddly enough, we didn't go to the same show, apparently, because I didn't see you there, but I saw it in the same theater. And the sound is good. You're sitting there thinking, I've seen so many movies in so many crummy theaters.
Yes.
Why, if I'm in this theater, can't I be seeing a good movie?
Yes.
I guess it was just too much to ask for. Coming up next at the movies, the latest comedy from the director of Cocoon.
I've heard a lot of talk about how good the Japanese businessmen are. I don't see it. I'm not impressed. Not one iota. You're fired.
Movie Gung Ho, a cute line where one character says to another in admiration, "You make me laugh." Well, that's pretty much what I have to say about this movie. I laughed enough times to make up for the story in the film that can't seem to make up its mind till the very end what it's really saying. But it's a comedy first and foremost, so maybe it isn't all that important to have it say anything. Michael Keaton, sort of a easygoing, wisecracking, chip off the old Bill Murray block, plays a man from a poor American town sent to Japan to try to talk a Japanese car company into financing the revitalization of the town's recently closed auto factory. The Japanese agree, but problem develops between the Japanese gung-ho style of workmanship and the more laid-back American workers' approach.
We have a little bit of business to discuss.
Hey, Audrey.
What?
Why don't you, leave?
Well, actually, I'm kind of interested in what's going on at the plant. Nobody minds if I stay, right? See?
Mr. Stevenson, Hunt, how do you think things are going at the factory?
Honestly, Cass?
Yes, please.
Not too well. See, you're stateside now, fellas, and tell you the truth, you're still acting like a bunch of Yokohama mamas. No offense.
Their relationship gets funnier than that. The problem is that Michael Keaton's workers have to produce a record 15,000 cars in 1 month to keep the plant open. In this scene with the Japanese boss, though, they're 6 cars short.
I'd rather have one of these cars we made together by hand. Your guys and my guys together. You know why? Because those cars stand for something. Those cars stand for something pretty great. I'm proud of those cars. I'm taking one. Gentlemen, I'm going home in my new car.
Those last 6 cars they made were sort of rush jobs, including one in which, it's kind of cute, they lift up the fender and they find that the worker is still in there in place of the engine, that is gets a big laugh. In between some of the laughs of the film, we do get ourselves asking the question, what is this picture really saying? What is it saying about the work styles of the Japanese and the American? And I think what it finally does say is a little bit provocative for a comedy, and that is that the American workers had better start busting their butts to keep up with world competition. Now, that's hardly a revolutionary thought, but it is sort of a pleasant surprise, along with another likable performance by Michael Keaton, who develops a very warm and funny relationship with that timid Japanese foreman we saw in that first clip, played beautifully by Getty Watanabe. Gung Ho was directed by Ron Howard, who has a nice, refreshing, homey touch with all of his movies, including Cocoon. This one isn't in that class, but it still works enough for me. Thumbs up.
I like the performances. I thought Keaton was good. Watanabe is really wonderful in this film, and he was terrific, if you remember, in Sweet 16, too. The movie I cannot give a good review to for at least two reasons. One, it's tremendously insulting and condescending toward the Japanese, and it doesn't give the Japanese work culture attention. I mean, I would have been interested in a movie that really told me more about what I've read in the newspapers about Japanese workers and management and factories and so forth, instead of these recycled and offensive cliches. And number two, you said the message was American workers better get off their butts. This is an anti-union picture. They throw out the union representative, and by the end they're getting $9 an hour to work 7 days a week, including when their wives are in labor at the hospital, and their holidays and evenings and everything else. This movie says, get rid of the unions and we'll be able to compete. That's a terrific message.
Well, first of all, on the offensive issue, I think that the movie so overplays it, including its opening scene, that no one will take offense. I mean, I really don't
believe that of most racial groups, that if you really have enough of a stereotype, it won't be offensive?
It's not a stereotype, Roger. They're doing a thing called, they're whipping the workers to make it. That is known as flat-out comedy of Charlie Chaplin kind of quality. I mean, it's very funny. On the second issue, I think the movie is saying that some of the guys want to lay back and take it easy, and that it would be better if they didn't take it easy. And that's all that the movie is saying. Well, as far as the union issue, I agree that it is not healthy for people to work 60, 70 hours a week, even though both you and I do it.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. In any event, I didn't think it was that funny either, and I thought that all through the movie, especially in the bowling alley scene, you could see Keaton and Watanabe really working to surpass this material. Next at the movies, Mary Tyler Moore discovers that her husband is having an affair with her best friend.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Did I disturb something? No.
Yes.
Our next movie is named Just Between Friends, and it begins by showing us an apparently happy marriage between Mary Tyler Moore as a stay-at-home housewife and Ted Danson as her husband, a seismologist. He studies earthquakes. One day, Moore is at her aerobics class and meets Christine Lottie, a local TV reporter. In other words, this is just a slice of everyday life in Southern California. Seismologists, TV personalities, aerobics class. The two women like each other, and so Moore invites Lottie over to dinner. And not until too late in this scene does Lottie realize that Moore is married to the man that she is having an affair with.
Shocking. Shocking.
We see you on TV.
Aren't you the one who interviewed my dad?
Your dad? When? After the earthquake, at the Seismology Center.
Seismology? I didn't know that.
What's his name?
Chip Davis. Well, actually, it's Dr. Thomas Davis.
Well...
Yes?
Well, I sure did. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, really.
Really?
Well, if that isn't the darndest coincidence. Is Chip ever going to be surprised? There's Chip. Well, at last.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of the computers is on the blink.
That's okay. Chip, you'll never guess who's here.
Holly,
Yep, he never will. Once Moore finds out about the affair, she naturally feels angry and betrayed, and nothing Lottie can say will help the situation.
so much better to find out this way. Holly, I didn't know you when I met him. If I had, this never would have happened. You gotta believe me.
It's all right, as long as you don't know the wife. Is that what you're saying?
No, of course not. But as soon as I realized what the situation was, I ended it. That's the truth, Holly.
Am I supposed to thank you or something?
Look, we really can't talk about this here.
I'm going to pay you back. Every penny. I don't want your guilt money.
The thing you have to understand there was that they had decided to go into business together with Lottie's money and open their own aerobics parlor. There was a lot I can't say about Just Between Friends without giving away too much of the plot, which is as action-packed as a soap opera. But what I can say, though, is that this movie is a classic example of our old friend, the idiot plot. This is the kind of movie where all of the problems would be understood in a second if everyone didn't always act like an idiot. I was especially restless during the first hour of the movie, which is an exercise in truly laborious and heavy-handed storytelling, shockingly amateurish in terms of the editing. The movie takes forever to set up the first day and get the simplest little points out, and then it breezes through the next year and cuts right over all the big climactic scenes.
And every 20 minutes we get a new little wrinkle just to keep the story going. This is TV movie making, really, just on the big screen, because one of the things that turns out, and I don't mind giving away a little of this, because no one wants to see this, I don't think, is at one point we find out that Lottie is pregnant. Now, the only reason that that occurs is because I had this feeling that the writer or the director thought that, wait a minute, tension is flagging here. We better throw in something new. So now we throw in a pregnancy. There are more coincidences in this movie than in 10 of any other movies.
Including the fact that she always called the guy Chip, and the girlfriend always called him
whatever his name is.
Ted or whatever his name is.
Who cares?
You know, and so this is terrific. You know, you would never figure out, gee, that's funny. They never had the conversation, what does your husband do? Oh, he's a seismologist. Gee, seismologist, name is Davis. Maybe it's the same guy. But no, there are no light bulbs going on over anybody's head in this movie.
And worst of all, it has fun with something very serious, which is marital infidelity. There are some jokes made in this film. It doesn't work. Coming up next, a love story triggered by a young Englishwoman's exposure to Italy.
This tremendous thing has happened between us. And what it means, let me explain. It means that nothing must hinder us ever again. That's what it means.
Here's a wonderfully romantic and funny film based on an E.M. Forster novel, A Room with a View, following the maturation of a young English woman taken on a tour of Florence by her spinster cousin. At their first dinner at their hotel, they expressed disappointment with the rooms they've received.
Your mother would never forgive me if I took the view.
Mother would want you to have it.
On no account. The view of the Arno is yours.
I don't know why we're arguing, because we don't have it. We have no view.
I have a view. I have a view, so does George. My son George here. You can have our rooms, and we'll have yours. We can change. But why shouldn't you have them?
Thank you very much indeed. We could not impose on your kindness.
Why?
You see, we wouldn't, Lucy.
Women like looking at a view. Men don't. George persuade them.
But it's obvious they should have the rooms. There's nothing else to say.
Great scene, can't argue with the reasoning, and I'm sure you spotted the young couple's initial reaction to each other, which blooms in a field of flowers.
Lucy!
Now, once they're back home in rural England, young Lucy gets quite a surprise when the pompous man she's engaged to reads about her kiss in a novel written by one of the hotel guests back in Florence.
Afar off the towers of Florence, and she wandered as though in a dream through the wavering golden sea of barley touched with crimson stains of poppies. All unobserved he came to her. Isn't it immortal? There came from his lips no wordy protestations such as formal lovers use. No eloquence was his, nor did he suffer from the lack of it. He simply enfolded her in his manly arms. No, this isn't the bit. There's another much funnier further on.
Should we go into tea?
By all means, tea rather than Eleanor Lavish.
Roger, you just talked about Just Between Friends and called it sloppy inept filmmaking. This is perfect filmmaking. This is beautifully filming of a novel, beautiful filming of a novel. I could simply finish my review by just reading off names, the names of the splendid performers here, starting with the exciting Helena Bonham Carter as an independent young Lucy, Maggie Smith, of course, as her chaperone, the wildly underrated actor Denholm Elliott as the father of the boy, so great in that scene we saw there. the guy who suggests switching rooms. I love his character in this picture. Ian Forrester wrote always all about the difficulty of breaking conventions, and Denholm Elliott's character provides one of the best arguments for doing just that, as does, of course, the young love affair itself. I certainly hope this film gets wide distribution and some Oscar nominations.
It is enchanting from beginning to end. And one of the nice things I like about it is the little literary touch where occasionally there are little ironic subtitles.
Yes, I know.
Now she lies to the following characters. Now